بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله وصلى الله تعالى وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. In the last 3 sessions we've been covering an introduction, the importance of good deeds, and yesterday we covered awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taqwa, keeping a barrier between ourselves and Allah's disobedience as one of the roots and one of the causes for us to do good and to have good qualities inside our lives. Today, like I mentioned yesterday, we'll be covering Ikhlas, sincerity. Ikhlas is very important, and Ikhlas has come first in our list of actions because the acceptance of every good deed depends on the sincerity with which you do it. I might give plenty of money in charity, but if there is no sincerity, Allah will not accept it. I can pray as many salat of nafil or as many rak'ats of nafil salah as I want. If there is no sincerity, Allah won't accept it. So if you like, any action we do, before it reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it needs to pass the test of ikhlas and sincerity. If it fails this test, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants nothing to do with our action. It's like when you have goods in a factory and you might have somebody who comes and he surveys the quality of the goods being produced to see if it's fit for the market. This is like the quality of our actions, where every day it's like we are living a day in a factory, and every day we have a'mal and good deeds which are ready to be presented at the time of Fajr, at the time of Asr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the angels. But before the angels take them up, they want to see, is it sincere? Yes or no? You might have done so much. If it's not sincere, they'd say, it's useless. It's dirt. It's worth nothing. And it's like, we have money, right? I can have 1,000 pounds. I can have 1,000 pounds in my pocket. If it's 1,000 pounds of halal wealth, I can use it. If it's 1,000 pounds of interest, I can't. The money is the exact same. There is 1,000 pounds inside my pocket, but the nature of the money is different. One is with interest, one is without interest. This is like our actions. On the face of it is the exact same deed. But within that deed, the sincerity only Allah knows about. Sincerity is very important. There's a really damning consequence that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions in a hadith. That he says, 3 people will be brought forward on the Day of Judgment. 3 people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will want them. One will be a mujahid, a shaheed, a person who fought in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave his life for Allah. There is no bigger sacrifice you can make apart from giving your life for Allah. Another person gave his wealth and he was very generous. And the third person gave his time, meaning he became an alim, he became a person of knowledge, and he learned the Quran, he learned the hadith, etc. Allah will call these 3 people, and it's very important because these 3 people are the kind of people we want to become. We want to be, those who have the status of the ulama, of the shuhada, of the generous people. So these are people who we aspire to be like. Allah will call one of each forward on the Day of Judgment, and Allah will ask them all individually. And this hadith is scary. Allah will say to the person who was generous, that I gave you wealth, what did you do with it? And the person says that I spent it in your path, O Allah. I was very generous. I gave everything in your path. I built schools, I built madrasas, I invested in masajid, and I gave lots of sadaqah jariyah. I sponsored an orphan and built a well. I did a lot, O Allah. I used to go door to door and collect money. Allah, I did quite a bit. Allah will say, no, you liar. You didn't do it for me. Allah will tell the angels, go take him to Jahannam. And the words of the hadith mention that this person won't just be thrown into Jahannam to be burnt in the fire. Worse than that, this person will be thrown into Jahannam to be made the fuel of the fire. And you're probably wondering, what's the difference? If I'm thrown into the fire and I burn and go jumping or being thrown into the fire and becoming the fuel, what's the difference? Because when you go into a fire and you burn, the damage is only to yourself. When you go into the fire and you become the fuel, you become the cause of the burning of everybody else. And then Allah will call, in different order, Allah will call the alim forward. Allah will say, I gave you knowledge, what did you do? He said, oh Allah, I spent day and night spreading your knowledge. And I gave sacrifices in spreading your knowledge. And I did it for you, Ya Allah. Allah will say, no, you're a liar. You're a liar. Angels take him to Jahannam, throw him inside Jahannam. And then Allah will call the shaheed and he says, Shaheed, what did you do? He said, Allah, you gave me strength and I gave my strength in your path. And I was courageous and I gave my life in your path. Allah will say, no, you liar, you did it. You did it because you wanted people to call you brave. You wanted people to look at your children and say, oh, your father was such a good man, such a brave man. He gave so much for this deen. The intention was corrupt. Allah will say, take him to the hellfire and throw him inside. He'll become the fuel of the fire. This is what happens when our actions lack ikhlas and they lack sincerity. They're hollow. They are hollow. For everything we do, as small as it might be, as small as it might be, it needs to have sincerity. As small as it is. Because any action which is small but is sincere is better than thousands of actions which are insincere. And sincerity is only something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can judge. And sincerity, you might look at somebody and he might seem like a very pious man. And obviously we hope and we wish good for other people. And we think the best of them. But only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows inside his heart what he's really like. This is why the ulama mentioned, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anh, he mentioned that when you want to follow the example of somebody, follow the example of those who have passed away. Because if they've left a legacy behind, it means these people were sincere. There's a really beautiful story of Sayyidina Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, the great Imam Malik, one of the 4 Imams. That at the time when he was writing his great book of hadith, the Mu'atta, many people around the world and many of his students, many of his contemporaries were also writing similar books. And students came to Imam Malik and said, let's spice it up a bit. You know what? Because there's so much competition, we need a USP, we need it to be special. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi replies that look, whatever is done for Allah will last. And whatever is done for any other intention will just go with the wind. And 1300 years on, we study in madrasa. We are in a Hanafi madrasa, but we study the Muwatta Imam Malik. This is the kind of acceptance Imam Malik had. Rahmatullahi alayhi. This is what happens when we are sincere. The small deeds you do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it. And like I said, our actions, they hang. And until it's not sincere, they are not accepted. We are spending our lives doing good. But because our hearts are corrupt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not accepting it. In the Quran, Allah says in Surah Al-Kahf, ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. There are going to be people in the hereafter. ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ. All their efforts of the dunya has gone to waste. وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. And they were the ones who used to wish and they used to think and they used to assume that I'm doing so much good. I'm doing so much good, but my action is corrupt. In a hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, and this is like the crux of sincerity. There are 2 types of sincerity. Sincerity with Allah, sincerity with the people. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in a hadith says, Man ahabba lillah wa abghada lillah wa a'ta lillah wa mana'a lillah faqad istakmala al-iman. The person who loves somebody for Allah and he hates somebody for Allah, and the person who gives for Allah and withholds for Allah, this person has sought to perfect his faith. His iman has become perfect. When I am sincere with the people, it means, and this is like the whole summary of it, regardless of how you treat me, I treat you how Allah expects me to treat you. Regardless of the names you call me, I will still treat you. And this example is no greater than the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That the woman, after the battle of Khaybar, the woman who gave them a da'wah, she was a Jewish woman and she poisoned the food. And Bishr bin Bara radiyallahu ta'ala, one of the Sahaba, he actually ate a morsel and he then passed away. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was also given this morsel, but as he put it in his mouth, the piece of meat spoke out and said, I have been poisoned. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam spat it out and said, he asked the woman, he says, did you poison the meat? And if so, why? She said, look, I thought if you're just a normal king, then you would have died. That means you're fake. But if you're a prophet, Allah would have saved you. If you're a prophet, Allah would have saved you. And look, Allah has saved you. Then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though she had tried to poison him, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam could have taken revenge. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, you know what, from my side it's forgiven, but because you killed the other Sahabi, his family want revenge. And his family went to avenge his death, so for that you will be killed. But for himself, the sincerity of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was said that you've done evil to me, but I won't drop to your standards, I'll raise my standards. I have my own standards. And I have my own integrity. So regardless of what you say to me, what you do to me, this never changes. Because if my actions change based on your actions, that means I'm doing things for you. I'm doing things for my soul. But if I'm doing it for Allah, then regardless of how you treat me, I'm going to be good to you. Regardless of what somebody has done for me. For example, somebody is a hafid of the Quran or an alim of deen or any type, but we might not like them. I might not like you. But you're a hafid of the Quran and you have the Quran inside your heart. Or you're an alim and you have the knowledge of deen inside your heart. Because of this I love you. This is love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And ikhlas with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is easy. We've just mentioned that everything I do is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can do many things. Every day I wake up in the morning and I go to work. The action of going out to work, if only we changed our intention, this is so beautiful. All we have to do is change our intention, and every adat becomes an ibadat. Every habit becomes a worship. I leave my house in the morning to drop my children to school. I'm going to do that anyway. Now I just change my intention. Allah, I want him to have a good education so he can earn halal money. That's become a worship. I'm going to go out to work anyway because I need to survive and I need to feed the family. But I change my intention. I say, Allah, I'm going out to work because I want to earn a halal rizq, a halal sustenance so I can stay away from haram. Every single second I spend at work becomes an act of worship. This is so easy. It's not difficult. It doesn't require any change in action. It requires a change in intention. That's it. That is ikhlas. And the harms of not having ikhlas, the harms of not having sincerity is, like I mentioned in the first hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept nothing we do. Allah will accept nothing we do if we don't have sincerity. The benefits of sincerity, everything is accepted. Every small thing I do is accepted. Even if I do something and it's wrong, but it's sincere, Allah will accept it. And a very simple example, a very beautiful example. In a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentions about sincerity and about persevering in his path. He says, the alim of deen, who perseveres and perseveres and perseveres. He tries and he tries and he tries to come to a conclusion in a certain ruling. And he tries with sincerity and then he makes a mistake. Allah will give him one reward for trying. He makes a mistake, Allah will give him a reward. And the alim who tries and tries and tries and gets it right, Allah will give him two rewards. One for the effort and the intention, and one for actually getting it right. This is the beauty of sincerity. Even if you try and you get it wrong, you get rewarded. And when we are sincere, Allah will open up doors. You will see Allah will open up doors. There's a really beautiful hadith, very famous hadith of the three men in the cave. I think everybody's heard this hadith time and again, that the big boulder came and it locked the cave. It covered up the mouth of the cave. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a hadith of Bukhari. He mentioned that the cave was blocked up. Now these three people are stuck inside the cave thinking, what do we do now? What do we do? We're stuck. They try to push it, it doesn't move, it doesn't budge. So they all said, you know what? We are evil people, right? But there must be one action in our life which we've done only for Allah. And this is my request and this is how I beseech you today. And I tell you, and I tell myself first, that we should have one, at least one consistent action in our life done only for Allah. Whether this consistent action is a big action or a small action doesn't matter. But it is consistent and it is for Allah. Something simple like praying Ayatul Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum after every salah. Nobody can hear me. But I prayed after every salah because I know the hadith mentions that Allah will take me to Jannah. And Allah says, the only barrier between this person and Jannah is death. So once I die, I'm in Jannah. And I do it silently so nobody can hear me. This is the one sincere action I do every day. Allah will forgive me. Have at least one action in your life. Whether it's giving 5 pence a day in sadaqah, whether it's giving 1 pence a day in sadaqah, anything. But make it for Allah. So these three people remembered one good action they did. One of them says, "Oh Allah, I've got not many actions, but one action I used to do very consistently is that I used to look after my parents. And one day I bought milk for them. And my habit was I'd give it to my parents and then my family. But my parents fell asleep when I got home. And my family were crying out for food, but I had this principle that Allah will serve my parents first. So I stayed up for them and I didn't give anybody else the milk. Allah, when they woke up, I served the milk to them. Allah, if I did this for you, forgive me. And open up this, the mouth of the cave." The other person said, "Oh Allah, I had a worker. And the worker, he came to me, did some work and he went away. And I owed him, just a few pounds, a few pennies. It was only a day's worth of work. He came back to me months and months later. And Allah, even though he worked for me for only one day, I presented an entire business to him. An entire enterprise. And I said, this is all yours." And he looked at me and he said, "What? I worked for you for one day and I've got all these sheep, all this cattle, all this farm. How? How does 1 day of work equate all of this you're giving me?" He says, "Oh person, the day you worked for me, I invested that money. And this is the result of the investment." Allah, he didn't know what I invested. I could have given him whatever I owed him for that 1 day's worth of work. But Allah, I did this in sincerity for you. Allah accepted. And Allah opened up the mouth of the cave. And the last person says, "Allah, I wanted to commit zina. As I got very close to committing the act of zina, Allah, the woman said to me, 'Ittaqillah, fear Allah.' And I got off. And I did this only for you, Allah." Allah then opened up the mouth of the cave. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, this is what happens. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, and every day he used to want to visit an old woman. They used to do this. They used to look out. This is one of the biggest faults we have in our community today. We've become very selfish. We've become very, the world revolves around me. And we've become those people who don't really give time to others. We're not generous with our time. There's one thing is generosity with wealth. The other thing is generosity with your services and with your time. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he was going on to be the second Khalifa of Islam. He used to look out for people to serve. So one day he sat in Medina and he says, "I want to go and serve this woman." So he goes out and he goes to serve this old woman. But as he gets to her house, he realizes everything has been done. All her needs have been catered for. And he said, "How could this be?" And he goes the next day and same thing. She's been looked after. 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, same thing. She's been looked after. And he's wondering, who on earth is coming before me? So one day he sits in wait. He wants to go in the night because he wants sincerity. Right? Because in the day he thinks people can see me. In the night nobody can see me. No street lights. Only Allah sees me. So I want to do it with sincerity. But somebody has gone there before him. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu is thinking, who is this person? So he lies in wait one day. And he waits and he waits and he waits and he sees Sayyidina Abu Bakr, the Khalifa of Islam, walk out of the woman's house. And he's thinking to himself, "Oh Abu Bakr, it could only have been you. It could only have been you. That you go out seeking old women in the middle of the night so you can serve them, look after them, cook for them and clean for them. As the leader of the Muslim Ummah." This is sincerity. This is in the darkness of the night. In a really beautiful hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "سَبْعَةٌ يُذِلُّهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّهُ." On the day of judgment, Allah will give shade to 7 special types of people. Special types of people. One of them, وَرَجُلٌ ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ خَالِيًا فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ. The person who remembers Allah when he is alone and he sheds a tear. How many times in our lives have we sat alone in isolation, seclusion and shed a tear for Allah? In front of people it's easy. In front of people when the Imam makes a dua, for me to say Ameen because everybody else is saying Ameen, it's easy. When the Imam is crying in his dua, for me to cry my dua becomes easy because the person next to me is crying. There's nothing wrong with crying in the Imam's dua, that's fine, you can cry. What I'm saying is additional to this. How many times in my salah have I gone into sajda one day and just poured my heart out to Allah? I said, "Allah, you know what? As evil as I am, you are very great. And as sinful as I am, you are very merciful. Allah, forgive me." And how many of us have cried to Allah like this? If we do, and we do it with sincerity, Allah's promise is a very great place, a very great protection and safety. So the harms of Ikhlas, of not having Ikhlas we've done. The benefits of it we've done. How do we get there now? How do we get there? Who can tell me? Now we're all making intention to be sincere, right? So how can we try to get to sincerity? There's nothing greater than doing good deeds in private. The things I do in public, let me do in private. If I'm making dua in public, let me make dua in private. If I'm praying my sunan and nawafil in public, let me pray them in private. Let me do good deeds in private so nobody can see me. If I find it very difficult, it's going to naturally be difficult. If I get into the habit and I'm not expecting praise from other people, and I get into this habit, then this is me becoming a sincere person. Another sign of sincerity and how we can become sincere is control yourself with other people. When they say something to you, hold back. Hold back. And as you continue to hold back, think that sincerity means that I don't respond to what he's saying. Unless there are times to respond. For example, if somebody is defaming you, or somebody is saying, oh, you don't know this, or somebody comes to the Imam and somebody says, Imam, you are doing this wrong. If I stay quiet, people will say, okay, so you admit you're doing it wrong, right? Because you're staying quiet. Sometimes you have to respond, but there's a way of responding. How else? How else could you bring sincerity into your life? You do things in private. What else? We've all made intention, right? So I want to see how these intentions are going to manifest themselves. Make dua. Nothing is greater than making dua to Allah. To bring a change into our life, dua and practice come together. Dua and practice come together. I practice ikhlas by doing things alone. I make dua to Allah. Allah, take me on this path and accept all my worship. There's a wonderful hadith. Allahumma tahhir qalbi min al-nifaq. Allah, purify my heart from hypocrisy, nifaq. Wa amali min al-riya. Allah, purify my actions from showing off. Meaning, make every single one of my actions sincere. Allahumma tahhir qalbi min al-nifaq wa amali min al-riya. And then the hadith goes on. But you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because who controls our hearts? Allah does. If I'm forgetting that Allah controls my heart, then I am losing out on a huge weapon that I have. Dua is a great weapon of the believer. How else? Before I start an action, in the middle of an action, at the end of an action, remember Allah. And think about my action. Is it sincere or not? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it for the right intention? Or am I doing it for the wrong intention? So every step of my action, I'm judging myself. I'm judging myself. And if I'm a harsh critic of myself, and I say actually my intention is wrong, and I try to change it, then Allah will look at this attempt to change it, Allah will accept it, inshallah. This is a really wonderful story of Hazrat Maulana Sharif Thanwi rahmatullahi alayhi, that he was sat to do a bayan in Kanpur, and he was called by one of the ulama there, and he was sat delivering the bayan. And just the week before, people had come into the madrasa and they had said, you know what, you people, you don't know anything. You know, all your knowledge is, very surface level, nothing deep. So he's giving this bayan, and the same people walk into the bayan. And he's thinking to himself, you want to see knowledge? I'll show you knowledge today. That's what he thought. You want to see knowledge? I'll show you knowledge today. Let me show you how impressive, my arsenal of opinion, of knowledge is. He had this intention, only nobody else knew his intention. And he stopped speaking. And he told the host, he said, you know what, take me off the minbar. And the host said, hundreds of people, and if you know about, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you don't get a crowd like 30, 40, you get hundreds, thousands of people coming together. He says, all these people have come for you, and you're just stepping off the minbar. You know what, man, we've called you, you're the special guest, stay on. He said, no, I can't. Then in private, when he explained to him, he said, look, it's because my intention changed. And if my intention changed, what I said, the words might have been great, but the intention was finished. So the action would have been hollow, wouldn't have been accepted. If anything, I would have been punished for it, so I just stopped. That doesn't mean you stop praying salah because your intention is bad. Like, Allah, my intention is bad, I'm just not going to try anymore. No, it doesn't work like that. If my personal action, for my personal ibadah and worship, if the intention is corrupt, then I work to change it. Like we've said, we make dua, we check intention before, in the middle, after. Another really good thing for how to bring sincerity to any good action into our life is create a punishment for not having sincerity. And this really works, but you need to be strict. And you need to be honest and sincere. That every time I'm insincere, I do something for somebody else, and I'll give £1 in sadaqah. That will change you. And there's many other ways that we can do things. I'm sure you can think of many more. My intention is to finish by 8:20 every day. So this way I'm going to finish by 8:20. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all ikhlas. So we know the harms of not having ikhlas from the first hadith. The benefits of having ikhlas: Allah will accept our actions, will, open up doors of ease and relief for us in our times of difficulty. And we've discussed how to get them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who are sincere and make us from those whose actions are accepted. Because many of us do many actions, only Allah knows if they're accepted. Make Allah make us from those whose actions are accepted, and He keep us alive on Iman, and give us death on Iman with sincerity. Forgive our shortcomings and accept our sitting here. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana. And alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa